All right, so we're going to have to move on to something serious. The Bert Show, we're real, we're funny, and we don't shy away from tough conversations. And we all felt it was important that we discuss Tyre Nichols, what happened to him, the video that got released on Friday, and what is currently going on with the 5 officers who have been arrested and charged with second-degree murder. For those that are not aware, Tyre Nichols on January 10th was stopped by Memphis police, and 5 officers brutally beat him to the point he died at the hospital a couple of days later. He's just 29 years old with a 4-year-old son. At the time of his death, he worked for FedEx and was an aspiring photographer. There was swift action within the Memphis Police Department. And I think watching the press conference Friday, because everybody was bracing themselves for the footage from the police vest, the body cam footage, excuse me. Everybody was bracing themselves for the protest, rightfully so protesting, but that it could escalate because this footage was so graphic and so heartbreaking and heart-wrenching that somebody could do this to another human being. Did you watch the video, Mo?
As much of it as I could.
I did the same thing. It got to a point where he was screaming out for his mom.
I couldn't take that.
And that's when I had to stop.
Yeah, I couldn't watch the rest of it either.
He was like 60 yards, I think, from his mother's house.
Yeah, because they had pulled him over for what they said was reckless driving. However, there's no evidence or proof of that. They're still investigating this. This is an active investigation. But as far as the accusation that he was pulled over for reckless driving, they have no proof of any reckless driving. And it was intense from the get-go. The hostility these 5 officers had towards him when they pulled him out of the car. Mm-hmm. And they were tasing him. They were pepper spraying him. And after they tased him, he was able to get away and he ran. And then that's when they ran after him. And that's when the intense beating went down. They're also now looking into the paramedics who arrived on the scene because they were so lackadaisical about the care.
It took 16 minutes after they arrived for them to administer aid, and I feel like they should be charged as well.
And that's the family feels the same way. There was a New York Times article, and I read it, and it said 71 commands in 13 minutes. Officers gave Tyre Nichols impossible orders. So New York Times did an analysis of the video and found that officers gave him 71 commands, most of them contradicting, like, give me your hands, but another officer was holding his hand. So and it was so contradictory. It was unachievable. Like, there was no way he was going to be able to comply to any of these commands because these 5 officers are shouting at him and they're contradicting each other. There was the press conference from Friday night. One of the parts that really stuck with me, and this is from the family's attorney, Ben Crump, and he was applauding the way Memphis had handled this investigation and how swiftly these 5 officers were fired and arrested for multiple charges, and he wants this to be the blueprint moving forward when it comes to extreme police brutality.
So let me be exceedingly clear on this point. When we look at how these 5 black officers who were caught on camera committing a crime, and when we look at how fast the police chief and the police department terminated them, and we look at how swiftly the district attorney brought charges against them in less than 20 days, then we want to proclaim that this is the blueprint going forward for any time, any officers, whether they be black or white, will be held accountable. No longer can you tell us we got to wait 6 months to a year, even though we got a video with evidence of the excessive force and the crime. No more can you tell us that anymore, because with these 5 black officers, You all moved it swiftly. And as the chief said, it was important for the community that they took swift action and that justice moved swiftly against these 5 officers who happen to be African American. Well, when it's white officers, we think it's also important to the community that there is swift action and that we move swiftly to justice.
Mom, what was going through your head this weekend after this video was released?
A lot. And I saw a lot of opinions about the matter online, and I felt like, okay, it was important to come in here and give my perspective as a black man. First of all, I agree with everything that he said. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's a given. That's an obvious one. It's not that we don't want the action to be just as swift because they're black, because police brutality is police brutality. It doesn't make you feel any different that it's a black officer or at the hands of a white officer. It's murder. And yes, action should be swift, just as swift every time. We just want the same energy to be kept. That's the first thing. The second thing is I see a lot of people seem to be confused as to how black officers would be in this situation with a black man. And what I don't think a lot of people understand, especially as a black man, it really is no different when you get a black officer. It's not like it's a situation where y'all going to do some kind of secret handshake and they're going to have a different feeling about you. It doesn't work like that. John Singleton documented this in Boys in the Hood a very long time ago. There are a lot of black officers, unfortunately, who want to go out of their way to prove that they are blue before they are black. And they'll do things to prove that, especially to their white counterparts or to their other black counterparts, to kind of separate themselves of, I don't come from this struggle, I'm not the same. And what they'll do sometimes is even worse. And a lot of black men have had encounters with black officers, and you felt that, where you didn't feel safe. It's not like you feel something different. The bottom line is entirely too many black people are dying at the hands of police brutality, period. And it just has to be stopped. And you see this on camera. You can literally see the abuse of power. You can see them standing around in the way that they're talking about it so casually after it's happened, as if this man is not sitting there in the condition that he's in.
Dying.
And I mean, it just goes to show you the mindset that they have, the lack of compassion, the lack of empathy, all of these things. It is broken. It is completely broken. And I just don't know how many more times we're going to have to watch somebody lose their life in a situation like this, call out for their mom. I'm thinking about his mom, what she's going through. It just needs to be stopped. Something needs to be done. Yes, this is the punishment that needs to go on from now on going forward. But at the same time, this shouldn't happen again because it's enough.
Did you have any conversations with your dad, who's a police officer?
I did. And he pretty much shares the same sentiments as me. Yeah. I mean, he's been in it. He's been in the field. He knows those types of officers that have that mentality. And it just seems no matter how often they see other officers engage in things like this, they still kind of have that. This, I have to prove myself. This, I have to be not necessarily protect and serve the community, but I have to enforce fear in the community. And my dad is one of the officers who got into the game for that reason, to try to help internally as well as externally. But unfortunately, you're going to always have some bad apples in the bunch. And until we can really start to weed out those apples, this is something that's going to continue to happen.
The Bert Show.